you so much. A very good afternoon to all our attendees today. Thank you so much for your participation. A very good day to all. Stay home, stay safe, and enjoy today's webinar. We are presenting to you the visionary leadership, critical factors that steer organizations towards sustained high performance in critical, even in turbulent times. The speaker for today is Mr. Vivek Talwar, who is the founder director of Chrysalis. He's also co-founder of Sensible.Earth Center for Sustainability and Director General of Seascapes of Tata Chemicals. Today's webinar is the third in the series of webinars that has been organized by the IMC Bajaj National Quality Award Trust. The Trust has initiated this program with a specific objective to bring to you all the essential core values that are found in any good high-performing organization, be it in any sector. It could be education, healthcare, manufacturing, service, small business, or NGOs. It cuts across all sectors. And that's the beauty and uniqueness of this performance excellence model that the IMC RBNQA Trust promotes. A little bit about the trust. The IMC Bajaj National Quality Award Trust has been founded in association with the IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the House of Bajaj in 1995. The trust promotes a performance excellence model that helps organizations to enhance their systems and processes. Our speaker for today, Mr. Vivek Talwar, is a stalwart, I would say, in the field of business excellence. And for the trust, he has been really supportive and guided us in many initiatives. He has contributed his time and expertise for various programs that we have set up. Also for the panel of judges meeting that we have every year. Some of the cycles he has been the panel select high-performing organizations in that particular award cycle. So we thank him so much for his immense contribution to the trust activities, and we look forward, and especially today he has given his time to speak on this absolutely all-encompassing core value that is critical to an organization, visionary leadership, that actually drives and steers excellence across an organization. Now, before I request Mrs. Talwar to take this forward, I would like to thank my colleague Natasha Swami to have coordinated this program very well, and for my IT head support, Selvi Nambison, who is ensuring that this broadcast goes smoothly. Thank you so much for your contribution, Natasha and Selvi. Now I would request Mr. Talwar to please take this forward. Thank you so much.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome. I hope everyone's locked down and sitting all alone and quietly listening in, and probably it's a good idea to have these kind of webinars at this time. Visionary leadership is actually quite a core among the core values, and I'll try and describe that a little bit. But let me first try and demystify the opening slide for you. So I was wondering what kind of a collage should I make in terms of imageries of leaders. And so I just picked up are really special. Of course, we've got Gandhiji, and you know, whichever part of the world anyone is going to be talking about visionary leadership, even in the next 100 years, I don't think anyone's going to miss Mahatma Gandhi. So he would be right up there as a top candidate who would fit the descriptor of visionary leadership the best. The person in the middle, very few people might recognize him, but he is Yuan Shiard, and he is the founder of a wonderful company, sustainability related company. And I always had a dream of working for a company like Patagonia. I never did, but I'm a great supporter and fan of this organization. Person on top right, Jamshedji Tata, founder of the Tata Group, and I'll talk a little bit more about him later. Bottom row, we've got Ila Bhatt, again a Gandhian, and she is the founder of Seva, which has close to 2.5 million, 3 million women as its members, self-employed. And what a wonderful vision Ila Ben had, and what a way she's running it. And today she can just sit back and it works on autopilot. That's the other thing about visionary leadership that we'll talk about. How do you make an organization that is not overtly dependent on the leader? Then we got Muhammad Yunus from Bangladesh, and a great visionary, again, in the space of microcredit. And everyone knows the gentleman on the bottom right, uh, Bill Gates. So if you look at it, the top, so on the right hand side, the three leaders come from the corporate world, and on the left hand side, the three come from, well, I won't call it the social sector because Gandhiji would be all encompassing, but let's just call it the non-corporate world. So a little bit about how I'm going to run this program, but I first want to wish everyone good health in these really tough times, and I hope that we bounce back. But when we bounce back after in the post-COVID scenario, I hope there's a lot of reflection, and we just don't hit the ground running trying to catch up in terms of our sales targets, etc. But I think all leaders should also look at what was the message that we got as the human race from the planet, from nature, and what we need to do about it. Visionary leadership is, I don't know how many of y'all have seen those, sound systems, the old sounds, the amplifiers of the past, where there'd be so many knobs, bass, treble, wow, flutter, balance, volume. Out of all these knobs, and each one would make a difference to the sound, but the volume knob is that big dial, and the moment you crank it up, it has the power to influence everything else. And it's a bit like that for visionary leadership. If you crank it up, even agility can go up. It's a visionary leadership that drives high performance in an organization in all areas, whether it is customer driven excellence or whether it's innovation. It's the leadership that drives it. So that's a big challenge that I have, that in this short period of time I have to cover this. And since it's an umbrella kind of a core value, I'll try and stay at the higher level and not dive down too much. Otherwise, we can just get lost in all the details. The other part that I wanted to talk about is that, I believe in the power of storytelling, the power of anecdotes, and I also believe that the corporate world often doesn't embrace this enough. So there'll be a little bit of storytelling in this session. Probably it'll make it a little more interesting. Otherwise, my monologue can be quite boring. I'll be giving some examples, and there will be a bias. I'll be giving more examples from a particular group. And I just wanted to put it up on the table that I'm doing that because I'm sharing most of the examples which are related to my personal experience. And since I spent all my corporate career in one group, so there'll be more examples coming from the group. But I think because the group is 150 years old and has done a lot in the space of excellence and is well respected. So I think I should not be blamed too much for putting so much of a bias on some of the examples coming from that group. And finally, I noticed in the list of participants, there are a few of my ex-colleagues there too. So I don't know why you guys are joining this program. Aren't you all bored of me? Just wanted to also mention that perhaps one or two anecdotes that I share here, you all would have already heard. So please bear with me. Let me start with the first anecdote and then we'll dive into visionary leadership. There'll be a little bit of learning from that too. And I love this example and I have titled it Humble Homie. So Tata Chemicals is the organization and Homi Khushru Khan was the managing director of this company, but he joined the company as the deputy managing director in 2006-7, around that time. And at that time, the leader, the managing director was another gentleman called Prasad Menon. Now, right from the late 90s, there was a huge amount of turbulence in the business environment, both internal and external of this company. And Tata Chemicals was going through a huge amount of pain. Some of these elements that are captured in this slide might be familiar to even other organizations. You know, when the import duties keep dropping, environmental laws become stringent, and the customer becomes fussier, they want better products, and Chinese start dumping cheaper material into the intense price competition. So these were the kind of usual challenges that this company was facing. And then a leadership change was initiated, and organizational restructuring happened, and a huge number of initiatives were launched to defend the businesses, consolidate and grow the organization. And cultural transformation became the core agenda, all being driven together through intense amounts of leadership engagement. And that's a time when maybe in the third quarter of this, Homi Khushru Khan had joined the company as the deputy managing director. So, and this transformation actually spread out in the organization and touched, the frontline workers, the contract workers. Everybody felt that if this company has to win in the marketplace, we need to change the ways of doing things. So organizational transformation was something that was being driven deep inside the company by the leadership team. Within this anecdote, I am going to digress a little bit and talk about one small incident. Which is the waste material of this chemical stored in big bunds. And one day, one of the bunds challenge of the pollution that it would cause. And Prasad Menon was the leader of the organization, and he joined just a couple of months back. So he rang up his chairman of the company as well as Tata Group, Mr. Ratan Tata, and asked him, this is what has happened, what should we do? And the answer that he got from Mr. Ratan, simple: do what is the right thing to do. So Mr. Menon called us all together and we made a plan on how we need to stop all this. While that was happening, we also talked about getting the press there, getting the forest department there, getting all the stakeholders. We got the media in, and we had briefings. We took them in jeeps to the site, showed them what has happened and our plans to contain it and bring it back in. We told the community outside, and suddenly a lot of NGOs started showing interest, environmental NGOs. We took them to the site. It was interesting to see that some of the people were surprised that why is this organization being so transparent and open. And in fact, some people also felt that they were missing the opportunity of trying to twist the arm of the organization, try and get something out of it. But what was amazing to see was that the reporting of an incident was happening along with the plans to contain in an inclusive manner, and trying to tell everyone, all the stakeholders, that this is what has happened. There's tremendous amount of transparency. There was tremendous amount of openness. And so this is just one way of looking at how an organization that's led by strong visionary leaders looks at adversities, and what comes naturally to them to do is also the right thing. Later on, through all the interventions of transformation, the company defended successfully its businesses, it consolidated, started growing, acquisitions happened, it became international from the 15th or 18th in the world. It crept up to number 2 in the world in terms of market share. And this is just a shot of an huge merger and acquisition, international merger and acquisition. The two people, the gentleman sitting with that diagonal stripes in the middle of the photo on his tie, that's Prasad Menon. Person sitting on our right to him is Homi Khushru Khan, the managing director and the deputy managing director. So here's a company that's now doing well. And for the kind of journey, and I'm not sharing the entire journey of transformation because this is an anecdote to talk about visionary leadership. Soon after this, the company started doing to another Tata Group company, which is to Tata Power, and Homi became the managing director of the company. And the person on our right on this picture is Mukundan, who's currently the managing director of Tata Chemicals. So you can see a leadership continuity here. Prasad Menon, Homi Khushru Khan, Mukundan. And you can also see a continuity of the kind of language of excellence that was flowing through the organization. For its tremendous performance and coming out of deep trouble, the company was appreciated, won a lot of awards, case studies were written. And in 2007, Tata Chemicals won the GRDQA award, which is the most prestigious award of business excellence given to the Tata Group. And it's a huge deal. It's considered to be really an aspiration for any company in the group. So Tata Chemicals won the award, and for a leader of the company to walk up the podium and receive the award from the group chairman is actually an aspiration and a dream. So Homi Khushru Khan's name was announced, and he walked up to the stage, and then he shook Mr. Tata's hand, and then instead of receiving the award, he walked up to the mic. And these were the words that he spoke. I'm just the wrong guy at the right place at the right time. I would like to call on stage the man who led the transformation of Tata Chemicals and turned it around into a very fine company and a worthy winner of the GRDQA award. Prasad, please. And at that moment, about 350 senior officers of the Tata Group stood as one and gave a standing ovation to the man who had led the transformation. But the story is about Homi and the fact that he selflessly gave credit to his predecessor. Visionary leaders are not bothered about their own ego. They look at trying to create a legacy in the organization and them being part of the legacy, and that legacy should continue. Prasad Menon, true to his character, walked up, hugged Homi, shook hands with Mr. Ratan Tata, and then came back and sat on his chair, because that day was for the leadership team, the current leadership team that deserved the award. So in this little anecdote, you can see Prasad Menon. And interestingly, both Homi and Prasad were not homegrown Tata leaders. Prasad Menon came in from Nagarjuna, Homi came in from Glaxo. But they wove themselves, they melted themselves into the legacy and the culture of this group. And of course, that legacy was founded by the founder. So therefore, visionary leadership is about creating a legacy that stays beyond the life and time of the leader. So there is no place for ego. And if it has to go beyond the life and time of the leader, you have to look at other leaders, you have to develop leaders. And that's a very important aspect of visionary leadership. So I love this character, the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland. And a very profound statement that the cat makes is, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there. And that's the thing about direction, right? Especially organizational direction. So if I were to ask each one of you all to close your eyes and imagine, bring into your minds an imagery of visionary leadership, I'm sure a lot of images would be like what you've got on the screen right now. You know, visionary leadership is about a foresight, looking into the future and then setting the direction. So if visionary leadership has two words, the visionary part is the one that is about the future. It's about envisioning. But I think it's very important to understand that it has two words, and the second word is critical. The other thing is that envisioning is not a continuous activity. And visionary leaders are not always envisioning. And the other thing is, you can always hire a consultant or a futurologist or a strategist or a scenario planner to help you envision or to help you figure out what do you need to do, what kind of products, services, markets that you want to go into, what kind of can outsource figuring out what to do, but you can't outsource leading an organization. And that is what visionary leadership is also about. In fact, that's the bigger piece. So it's not just about the ability to envisage the future, but it's about creating a really compelling vision. And then to achieve that vision, you have to transform the organization. It's about bringing about a huge change, creating an excitement in the organization, and inspiring all the stakeholders into that vision. Compelling vision is so critical. So there are these two dimensions. It's about thinking and doing. It's about balancing the long term, yet also focusing on the shorter term. It's about changing the business, running the business. It's about strategy and operations. So visionary leadership is not some astrologer or not just great at astrology, but it's also about leading the organization to that vision. Probably I'm spending too many words trying to bring this point in, but that's because very often we look at visionary leadership only from that horizon, next horizon, future kind of perspective. So if there's one slide that for me is most important, it's this one that I'm sharing with you, and I'll probably repeat it again later on. So the visionary leadership is about creating a compelling purpose or a vision, which has the power to transform the world into a better place. And then we'll try and decipher what that means a little later. But that's about it. So what we are saying is that it's about creating a compelling vision. And that vision should be so compelling that it creates a certain energy in the organization and everybody feels good about attaining it. Then that vision has to be converted into objectives and goals. And that's the time when you want to keep in mind the key stakeholders' needs, not just the shareholders or the financiers, but all key stakeholders' needs. It's about creating structures and systems, a management system, technical system, so that you can deliver on the vision. It's about defining values that will guide the behavior of the organization. Then you need to put it all into some kind of an architecture so that then it's easy for you to drive it. You should plan for the resources that are required. You need to look at the kind of risks that you take and try and mitigate those risks. And then you need to carefully select and empower key players who would be part of your team to deliver on that vision. And it's so important to create leaders at all levels. After all that is done, it's about communicating the plan to the key stakeholders. And this is a critical piece because often, and not just the external stakeholders, but even your own people might ask you, what's in it for me? Why should we do it? And then the visionary leader's job is to address those questions, to create a buy-in, to motivate the people, develop them, inspire them, give them challenging tasks, and reward people, and create that kind of a culture that will reinforce the values that were put in place before, and build some good energy into the organization. That is so critical if a compelling vision is to be achieved. And then it's also about selecting, promoting, and hiring the right people who are aligned to both the values as well as the compelling vision. And while the leader is doing all that, the leader must make sure that he or she walks the talk and is a role model and leads by example. So this, in a way, could be the blueprint or say the model for visionary leadership. When you talk about a compelling purpose or a vision, it cannot be about, your compelling vision cannot be that I want to be a $10 billion company by 2025. Now that probably is something that you will achieve on the way to achieving your compelling vision. But, making money cannot be the purpose. It should be something that you attain while achieving your purpose. And so I think that's very important. Revenues, profits, size, market share, geographical spread, these could be targets that sit below the compelling vision. It is not the vision. And then, and also it should sort of answer this question about why do we exist? It's about doing good. It's about making the world a better place. And I think that's very important when you articulate your compelling vision. But the moment I say all this, in some people's mind, this thought might be coming, but aren't you talking about some kind of a social enterprise or an NGO? What about the corporate world where the business of business is to do business? But that's what we are trying to say, that we are not trying to say that you convert your organization into some kind of a not-for-profit or a social enterprise. But transforming the world can also happen through your technology. Could happen, maybe that wasn't a great example, but you get the point. It's not about converting your organization into a social enterprise. And also, as I said, you can use technology to attain that vision. Just have to get rid of and also you could bring about sustainability into the core of your strategy, so that your products and services, your offerings, make the world a better place. So that's also a possibility. And you have to take that compelling vision and break it down into goals and targets. And now this might get into some kind of a technical thing, so I'll quickly jump out of it and come back to a higher level. But organizations that have strong systems and processes sitting below visionary leadership then have methodologies to plan and deploy the strategy of the organization. All through the year, you're gathering data. Then at some point of the year, you analyze that data. Then you set your direction. You do it early enough so that there's enough time before the next financial year starts. And then you plan your, make your plans, your long-term strategic plan, and your scorecards. And then you drill it down deeper into the organization, into various levels, so that by the time it's the beginning of the financial year, you hit the ground running, and then you're reviewing your performance also. So visionary leadership must also be about bringing in management systems and technical systems and processes so that you can convert that soft, high level aspirational purpose or vision down into a strategy, into goals, into targets, and then review them through structured mechanisms. And so this is just an example in one of the companies where this happens. In many organizations, similar processes are done. Visionary leaders also create an organization where multiple stakeholders' issues become important for the organization to address. So it's not just the shareholder that you're looking at, you're looking at all sorts of key stakeholders and what are issues that are material to them and what are issues that are material to you. Look at the confluence of that and work on it. So that little graphic on the bottom right saying that an organization could just look at what is material to it in the high zone, the dark blue band, but high performing organizations also look at what is material to the stakeholders and look at that entire hatched area, and that hatched area is also across the dark blue, and start looking at addressing those issues and bringing that into the core of their sustainability strategy. And that is where environmental, social, and governance norms become so important for companies that want to live long, because uh, instilling a culture of ethics and care endears the organization to all stakeholders, uh, makes international and national partners look at you more attractively, and ensures organizational sustainability. So, visionary leaders actually ensure highest environmental, social, and governance standards, and they love driving them in the company. They love spending time in moving uh, up on this curve and becoming world class on these ESG issues. So this confluence of the management system and the technical system and all those elements that go into it, and I'm not going to spend too much time in it, but all this is now telling you that visionary leadership is now getting into the details of what all needs to be in place so that that compelling vision becomes a reality. Um, and then what is very important is for leaders to define organizational values and make sure that those values are what drive behaviors in the company. Often organizations look at picking up a handful of values, some of them that they're good at, that they want to keep forever, and some of them that they may not be good at, but it is required. Like for an organization, maybe innovation is required and they may not be good at it, so they might pick it up as a value and then ensure that it's driven deep into the organization. So a handful of values, usually about 5 or 6, are picked up by the organization. Ideally, it's done in a collective way by involving people, involving the workforce, and then making sure that those values don't stay as fancy words put up by the corporate communications team in fancy posters, but actually get into the DNA of the organization. And we'll probably talk about that a little later. So you need to define or redefine your values by involving people. You need to define behaviors that will reinforce those values. You need to communicate them to people. And for all this, you might need to have policies, principles, systems, etc., so that all that get embedded well in the organization. And then these values should become the gate through which you either reward and recognize people or deal with consequences when people are not uh, behaving as per the values. And then you might revisit it every year on your annual strategy workshops. Now, unfortunately, in many organizations, you just define the values and you communicate them. The boxes in the light blue are what will breathe life into these values. And this is what organizations need to do. Here is an example outside the Tata Group, South African bank, Nedbank, which went through a tremendous, uh, successful transformation. And this is about creating an entire architecture of change. So that gray box that you see below the butterfly, these are all elements from that process flow that I'd shown in the beginning as the blueprint of the visionary leadership. And I'm trying to take these elements and share with you. So here is a company that has got values at its foundation, and they look at the kind of scope that they have, what is the strategic focus, what will they make sure happens, what is it that they are good at, and what they want to be, what are their deep aspirations. They want to be a great place to work, a great place to bank, a great place to invest, and then you have your vision sitting on top. So this is about creating that architecture for change in every organization, uh, where leadership is trying to drive that entire organizational energy towards its mission or its vision, needs to have that kind of architecture in place. Here's how Tata Power did that. It had three fields where it mostly worked. These were its business streams: the operations, running the plants; execution, building new plants; growth, looking for opportunities; and then what was cutting across: customer affection, culture and people perspective, sustainability, and being the lead adopter of technology, and looking at what all it needs to have in each one of these. So that is the architecture for change that this organization did. Every organization needs to do that. And now this is very important, that how do you deal with talent? Visionary leaders appreciate the value of talent because the job is so tough that they can't do it themselves. They need a wonderful team that is there, and a team that's energized and is highly capable. They carefully select their teams, and very importantly, they empower the teams. Uh, so that leadership bandwidth is so important, that you're not dependent on a singular leader to achieve your vision, but an entire leadership team, leadership across levels. And in the end, once you do it well, you become a factory of strong, capable leaders. And uh, the last bullet is an interesting one, which says that you need to watch out for leadership style where the office staff of the leader becomes the most powerful, even more powerful than the leaders at the next level. That's a sure shot recipe for diminished results. So you would want to create a good leadership level, and you would want to empower them, and you would want to sail with them towards the journey that you're trying to uh, chart out. Here is a wonderful example of that kind of factory of leaders. Tata Steel, you got Rusi Modi, Dr. Irani, Mr. Muthuraman, Mr. Nerurkar, Mr. Narendran, and so many other leaders that are today running companies in other Tata Group, in other parts of the Tata Group, or leading functions. And they've been doing it right from the beginning, the kind of uh, leadership that was driven. And again, that comes from the legacy of visionary leadership, which is to spawn more leaders, which is what Jamshedji Tata did. And that's what GRD was great at doing, building so many leaders in the Tata Group. And in fact, when you talk about legacy, I was tempted to talk about Tata Steel's legacy. What a lovely company. And the byline of the company that we also make steel is so apt. And I thought I'll share with you a little trivia, which some of you all may not know about. Oops, I'm so sorry. Let me see whether I can. Let me see whether I can. Um, Okay, so this is a ice and soda making machine that Tata Steel got made. Many of these they got made from company in London. Uh, and in 1914, they installed these machines in Jamshedpur because they found that in that sweltering heat, it was important to refresh their workforce. So in the summer, every 1 hour, every worker would get one bottle of ice and soda. And in winters, it was every 2 hours. And this is not coming from compliance, it's coming from really creating that kind of a legacy of care for your people. And what, again, I'm just going to, let's see whether I can do that here again. Or let me just, I don't want to spend time here. But the other graphic that I removed was so many initiatives that this company launched in terms of labor benefits that 20, 25, 30 years later, the government of India then made it into a regulation, made it into a law. So here's a company that proactively created so many best practices that then became law. That's the visionary leadership is not about envisioning a future in terms of product, services, or what you want to do. It's also about envisioning what kind of an organization you want to create. How are you going to look after your people? Often an organization is shown as a triangle. It has strategic levels and tactical levels, and this is how it looks like. But in visionary organizations that have visionary leadership, actually what you see is, oops, every function, every department also has a strategic role to play. They're not just delivering something for the top, but they are coming from some kind of a construct where they're operating for today, building for tomorrow, and envisioning for the future. So at each level, you got strategies that collectively align themselves to the enterprise strategy. And that's how you create that buy-in. That's how you create everyone's alignment to that compelling vision that's sitting on top. One of the most beautiful quotations that has always uh, been very special for me was, or is this one by Anthony de Saint-Exupéry, which says, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to gather wood, divide work, and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. It's about instilling in your people an alignment to the purpose. And once that happens, then the processes and the work becomes that much more fun and energizing to do. And that's about creating the culture. And while Drucker might have said that culture eats strategy for breakfast, uh, perhaps a more balanced way is to say that culture and strategy both need to intertwine to achieve organizational success. And that is where uh, visionary leaders understand the right hand side, those elements that are sitting there: organizational culture, values, operating principles, organizational transformation, interventions, leadership attributes, behaviors, and instilling elements like pride, ownership, care, teamwork, etc. And on the other side, of course, on the left, you have the elements of the strategy. These need to intertwine to create high performance. And that is how, in a high performing organization where everything is in place, you'll find that the culture is driving strategy and is intertwined with strategy. So we talked about these two systems and the elements of it. Actually, it's the third system that combines with it, which is the behavioral system that leads to high performance. All three of them together merge to form high performance. A management system with all these elements, a technical system with all elements, behavioral system with cultural norms, operating principles, behaviors, mindsets, visionary leadership gets the buy-in of the workforce through deep engagement on all those, the management system and the technical system, by also driving the behavioral system in place. So for that high performance and engagement, there are various elements that are important. I won't go through it, but these are some of the, let's just call it the building blocks of trying to get your team to be engaged, so that there is a spring in the step of everyone when they are aligning their work with the enterprise. I'll probably skip this one in the interest of time, but very quickly to say that, you know, if culture A is about everyone behaving in this, it is about everyone is aligned and behaving in a particular way, but the quality of culture is not good. And I'm sure some ideas come to your mind where you see certain departments or organizations working in a particular way. Everybody's working in the same way, behaving in the same way, but it doesn't seem like the right way. And then there's the culture B, where there's just some people who'll tell you what is happening here and what it is, but not everyone is working the same way. So they're describing the right culture, but it's not embedded deep in the organization. And it's culture C that we would want uh, to be there in our organization, where everybody is aligned and it's the right culture. So here again, this is an example of a company that's Tata Power, where we decided that our values are sacred to us. I don't know whether the values still exist because you keep revisiting them. So it's safety, agility, care, respect, ethics, and diligence. And the behaviors were identified for each one of these. And so were initiatives, so that they were driven deep into the organization. And I recall that this is a little anecdote that I'm sharing with you. By the way, this is not existing. This was supposed to be uh, something that is fiction today, but we hope it becomes a fact tomorrow. And I'll just go through it very quickly so that you understand what does alignment and quality of values mean. So a small group of Tata Power executives are at the airport waiting to catch their flight. A passenger is watching them from some distance away. While he can't hear the group's conversation, he gathers courage and walks up to them. The passenger says, "Excuse me, are you all from Tata Power?" The Tata Power team says, "Yes." "How did you guess that?" The passenger says, "I saw the way you freed one hand and held the railing coming down the stairs. Saw you help the old lady with her cabin baggage. Saw the way you gave up your seat to the couple with the baby. Saw the way you, sir, returned the extra 500 rupees the coffee vendor mistakenly handed back to you. Saw the way you were the first ones to notice the gate change for the flight, and the way that you're all completing some of your work on your laptops and iPads." And so one of the members says, "Oh, we are just working on closing some of our open action items." So the passenger says, "Your behavior is almost identical to a group I saw last time. They were also from Tata Power." Now, this is not an easy situation to create. It takes a long time. But this is what every organization needs to create, which is high alignment to your culture, high alignment to your values, so high that everybody is behaving in the same way. In some places, in some schools, some institutions, sometimes we see that, say when the earthquake and the tsunami hit Japan, we saw this kind of a thing happening. And this is an aspiration for all organizations to create that unified culture. Um, Forget this red line for a minute, but let's look at the green line. Going up to the desired state, becoming higher performing over a period of time. Everyone's aspiration would be to reach the desired state of success. But unfortunately, in many cases, after a little bit of progress, then you go into that zigzag blue line. Or worse still, there's progress and then you go sliding down. And in a McKinsey report, it was found out that only 1/3 of the organizations actually stay on that green curve to achieve success. 2/3 of it, 2/3 of the organizations fail. And when that was analyzed, this is the breakup. Leadership behavior does not support change is one third. Employees' resistance to change is what 40%. Inadequate resources are the. In fact, leadership also influences the other three elements there. So leadership behavior is so important if you want transformation to take place. Unfortunately, in many organizations, the leadership comes from the syndrome that we are okay, you guys are not okay, you all need to transform. So you guys start behaving like us, be and do like us. That is not a great message. And in the greatest organizations where transformation actually succeeds, the leadership says, this is the desired state, let's all move there. So everyone, right from the top leader of the company to down the line, is an agent for change as well as a target for change. Everybody wants and needs to change to create the organization of the future. Um, some simple traits. Now I'm coming to the last 5 to 10, 7 minutes of the deck. Uh, some simple traits that visionary leaders actually follow. They trust their subordinates. They encourage risk. They themselves know what they're talking about. And very importantly, this fourth bullet, they invite dissent. You should encourage people to challenge you. And if people are going to be afraid to speak up, then your culture is not going to transform. And leaders also in great organizations are very good at simplifying so that the alignment becomes that much easier. Now, when we come to turbulent times, and today's time is as turbulent as, or perhaps much more than what the human civilization has ever seen. In fact, I was just talking to someone that the Second World War was so small compared to this COVID situation that we have here in terms of the impact across the globe. And how quickly are we going to come back to normal is a question many people ask. Is there going to be normal, or is there going to be a new normal? And how do you prepare yourself for the new normal? And I thought I'll share with you this shark fin concept, where you might have a certain business model that has a life, and sometimes in the middle of that, you might just see something sticking out of the water like a fin of a shark. And as compared to that big, fat, yellow curve, this one is so small, so you think that it's going to do nothing to your business model. But if you see a little fin, there's a good chance that there's a big, fat shark sitting below it. And so, boom, it comes and it disrupts your business model. The truth of the matter is that these shark fins are going to come in more frequently, and there are going to be more disruptions. And this might become the new normal. There's going to be perhaps a novel COVID coming after this. There are going to be so many other things. People will stop going to hotels, pubs, nightclubs, rock shows, public transportation might be different. So many things might happen. Our ability to create our, let's call them escape hatches, or transition protocol into these new curves is so important, and do it in such a nimble way that then you can hop from one to the other. And that is going to be the organization of the future. So visionary leadership is not about one static long-term dream now. It's about creating agile organizations and ensuring that you are delivering on the changing needs and the rapidly changing needs and rapidly changing scenario. So steering the ship in turbulent times, visionary leaders, they compress the environment scanning cycles. You don't do it every year. You're doing it like, on this COVID thing, every company needs to sit every 1 week and figure out what are we going to do next. Involve key resources of information and insights. If the same team is going to sit every day and talk about the same issue probably you're going to get the same result. How do you make sure you get people with insights and information into that table, onto that table, so that your discussions could change? Actively listen to outlying views, create probable scenarios based on emerging trends, calculate the risks involved, test availability of resources and the organizational ability to change the direction, define new processes and capabilities, make decisions on whether for those capabilities you're going to develop your people or you're going to buy them from the market. If you're going to buy them from the market, uh, how are you going to look at the workforce needs? How are you going to exercise care in that organizational sustainability and the way you're going to deal with people? Maybe you're going to retrench people. How are you going to do that in a humane way? How do you involve key stakeholders in time to create a buy-in and communicate to them openly in a frank and a transparent manner? How do you communicate to and motivate the organization to rally the engagement level so that people are with you? How do you communicate, so that everybody is not starved about what the organization is going to do? And how do you celebrate early wins? These would be important elements for every organization to look at in turbulent times. And when times are tough, recession is imminent, visionary leadership also prepares the organization by communicating in time to people about what's happening, involving leadership across levels to communicate, not just one person doing that. If there's going to be a ramp down, then you plan it well so that people don't think you're confused. Um, People who communicate about it should have all the data with them. Your messaging should also be positive and talk about what's going to happen after all this mess is over, post downturn. What are your plans and intentions? Talk about the light at the end of the tunnel or the dawn that's going to come after the darkest night, and talk about being with the organization. And most importantly, as you go through your ramp down initiatives, when you're bringing down costs, it's so important that leadership makes larger sacrifices so that they are walking the talk. That's also extremely important. So in the end, these kind of unexpected events are going to happen. Organizations that have visionary leadership, they create the paths that steer the organization during those VUCA times. And finally, I'm bringing that slide back. This is that model that talked about. Elements of it were shared through this presentation. And thank you very much. And stay safe, stay healthy, and stay locked down. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivek. That was absolutely all comprehensive, and I'm sure all our attendees have huge learnings as a takeaway for them. We have some few minutes for quick question answers. So, can I ask you, Vivek, on some of the questions that have been raised by the attendees?
Sure. I don't know whether I'll be able to answer them, but I'll give it a shot.
A few of them, yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. There's Lena Goodacre who has written, which is the leadership quality that is vital in turbulent times for any organization? Is it business focus, employee focus, or social focus?
Well, it might seem like a cliched answer I'm giving, but actually, it has to be all three. Yeah. By the way, the third one, social focus, is not just about having a warm feeling in your belly, but it's about having society on your side, because society also has your future customers. It has people who are giving you the operation or the license to operate. They are your neighbors, and you would want to be inclusive. But when the chips are down and you do not have deep pockets, you rationalize, but you would not want to cut the most important programs that are happening, but you would want to do it in a way that your support is still there for the community, but the community also realizes that you're going through a tough time. People focus. So it has to be a multiple stakeholder approach. It cannot be business focus alone, because resilient organizations are the ones that actually try and take their stakeholders along. they will understand, your stakeholders will understand if you're honest with them, if you share your situation with them, that you're not going to be able to do the same things that you could do before, but
Okay.
you still are with them. That's a caring organization, and that's an organization
Mhm.
that its stakeholders will back when times are good again, and they'll flock
Mhm.
back to you as your customers and as your stakeholders to engage with you.
Okay. Another question is from Abhishek Joshi. He's asking how a visionary leader meets the cost targets of organization, except layoff of people. During your assessment of different companies, could you find something interesting and creative?
No, sorry, in the middle your voice sort of
Okay,
faded
this
out,
is
so can you quickly
okay.
just
Yeah, how a visionary leader meets the cost targets of organization, except layoff of people. During your assessment of different companies, could you find something interesting and creative?
hmm. So accept is EXCEPT or
Yeah,
ACCEPT?
EXCEPT.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me park that question because I still haven't understood it. I'm sorry, but that's
Okay,
my
fine.
fault.
No
But
problem. We
I'll
can we
probably
can respond
decipher
to.
this one, and yeah, yeah,
Okay,
I'll do
we'll
that later.
respond to you,
If
Abhishek,
you
in a
remind
while.
me, yeah,
No,
and
definitely.
Maya, you'll have to remind me about that, and I'll do that.
Absolutely, I'll do that, Vivek. But another question is how to behave when you have a power centric leader who keeps power with him only and not empower.
Okay, so
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I think you might want to figure out first whether there is an issue. Is that a leadership style, or is that
Hmm.
a behavior that is done with some people? If it's a
Okay.
leadership style, then if your organization is having some kind of an engagement survey, that messaging has to go to them, or
Hmm.
maybe it needs to be done in a way. Someone should have the courage to speak to that leader, but don't do it in public in front of everybody. Nobody likes that. But maybe
Yeah.
just to
Hmm.
have a quiet chat uh,
Hmm.
uh, in a way that is seen as positive and developmental. Um,
Okay.
in good organizations, you have leadership coaches who actually figure these kind of issues, the
Hmm.
dysfunctional leadership, dysfunctional issues with leadership, and then they are coached on that. And so you need to do it in a nice way so that the
Okay.
ego doesn't get hurt.
Okay. Another question is in modern times, values seem to change with the leader. How do corporations ensure a continuity in this, and what role should leaders play?
Yeah, this one is a very important one. Sometimes when leadership changes take place, the baby is thrown out with the bathwater, and the organization really suffers. That and all the good initiatives go out, and because every new leader wants to do it their own way. I am not sure whether there is an answer to that.
Okay.
Those leaders should be going through transformational processes and
Okay.
reflections. But if I
Mhm.
go walk into that leader's room and tell him that, hey, why did you throw this out? This was a wonderful thing. I
Mhm.
might want to do it in a way that I can bring data to the surface rather
Okay.
than try and show it as a dysfunctionality, but back it
Okay.
up with data and do it in a gentle way.
Okay.
Requires courage, by the way. I
Okay.
personally feel that leadership is a lonely job.
Mhm.
Leaders like people who are frank and tell them, things like they are, but they don't like those things to be told in public so that
Yeah.
there is loss of face. So
Okay.
take a shot,
Absolutely.
and don't blame me if it backfires.
No problem. Another quick question: what should the organization do for employee morale during VUCA times?
Hmm.
Mm.
Now that I think it'll depend upon the current culture of the organization. It's like
Okay.
an MTV might want to do it differently than a Tata Steel. So there will not
Okay.
be any one right answer. But
Mm-hmm.
I think what is important is that the messaging
Mm-hmm.
from leaders has to be constant. Leaders should be inquiring about the health of not just the employees but their family members. And it should not be done in some mass produced emails, but it should be done in a way that seems a little customized, and so that the
Yeah.
people feel that my leader cares for me. And maybe for the singular leader sitting at the top, it's tough, but maybe the leader should be doing it with all their all the team members and actually inquiring about them and
Mm-hmm.
finding out whether they need help. That itself will raise morale.
Okay. So another last question, Vivek. Which quality of the organization will help it to bounce back after in this current scenario?
Okay. So I think if the trends are going to change, if there is a new normal, if your
Mm-hmm.
offerings will no longer work and new offerings have to be devised, then
Mm-hmm.
obviously you need to be innovative, you need to be frugal, and you need to be agile and nimble so that you put your new approaches very quickly.
Oh,
If it's going to be the same thing going back,
okay.
then it's about relationship management. So again, it will depend upon what business you are in, whether your
Mm.
business is totally going to get transformed, or it's a question of limping back on a similar model. So these would
Okay.
be at a level two. The answer would be different for you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vivek. Any last message that you would like to give to the audience from your end so that it just boosts the morale of everybody?
No, well, I just want to say that you know. This is a time where we can just chill out
Mhm.
and take a break, but
Yeah.
also this is a time to reflect, to meditate, and to also look at what are those things that we will change so
Yeah.
that our footprint is lighter on this planet,
Okay.
and we as a human race um actually are not so negatively impactful on
Mhm.
the environment. And
Yeah.
also, most importantly, the people at the bottom of the pyramid are going to get impacted so badly.
Okay.
They'll be their situation is going to be much worse than us. Let's
Mhm.
be giving. Let's have a large heart.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you so much, Vivek, for your time, and the insights were wonderful. I truly appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
All the
to
best.
the audience, I would like to say that those who were also not able to join us because of the participation number constraint, we will be uploading the video shortly. Thank you so much. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.